We are absolutely thrilled tonight for our friend Leslie Seagraves to come and share her heart. She is going to be teaching us from the Word, and as I said last Wednesday, that we were so excited about her being here. She is a fireball and a powerhouse for Jesus, and I know she's going to bring us great things from the Lord. Would you give a great big Wednesday night TMC welcome to Miss Leslie Seagraves?
The small Nepali girl had just been born. She nestled into her mom's arms, and her mom was feeding her for the very first time. A contented sigh. And then behind her, her dad, in a fit of rage, charged the little girl with a Nepali spear, ready to kill her for daring to be born a girl. The mom flinched and pulled the little girl back, and an uncle saw from the side and ran and pushed the spear out of the dad's hands. All of us are enraged with a story like that, aren't we? We all know objectively that it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. As I stood with this girl 14 years later, she told me her story. I was nauseated because each of us in this room, we know it is wrong. Even in cultures like America where there is relative truth, all of us from a deep level know it is always wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. However, in our country today, over 2,500 innocent children will be killed today. In the world, there will be 115,000 innocent children who will lose their lives today. Maybe we can't hear the silent screams because in our country, it's legal to kill them. Maybe we can't understand the scale of the global genocide because it's hidden and we don't see their bodies. Now, I realize tonight, as we talk about life in the womb, I realize there's a statistic that in the United States, 1 in 4 women in the church pew have had an abortion. So in this room, there could easily be a woman who's had this sad moment in her life. There could be a dad, there could be a boyfriend, there could be a granddad who's paid for that abortion in this room. Or there could be one of us in this room that was silent when we knew a friend was contemplating an abortion. Tonight, the purpose is not to bring judgment or condemnation on any person. You know why? Because that's the power of the gospel. Amen. Jesus can forgive any sin. But what tonight is a night where we as people, as believers in Jesus, we ask the question, when we recognize that over 2,500 are being killed in our country alone, how do we love our unborn neighbor? Jesus said to love your neighbor. So how do we love those who've not yet been born? God calls the alarm. In Proverbs chapter 24, he says, deliver those who are being taken away to death and those who are staggering to slaughter. Oh, hold them back. This is the message that God cries out to the church. And then it goes on in that passage to say, do not say we did not know. Does not God know? He knows our hearts. He knows, we all know the emergency that has taken place in the United States of America. He knows that we know. The question is, what are we doing to love those unborn neighbors? This topic is so significant for every person in this room. Let me tell you why. Because our silence on this issue as a church and as Christians and as even non-Christians Our silence will cause the death of another child. Our engagement on this social issue, on this massive injustice, could mean a child, an individual child, can be alive. There's a significance to this issue. One of my kids' favorite games that we've played since they were little bitty is a game called Would You Rather. And it's a game where I would ask a question. We did lots of road trips and flights and things. And so I would say, would you rather eat pizza or spaghetti? Would you rather take a vacation at the beach or in the mountains? Would you rather direct a play or direct a movie? Were any of the answers my kids gave wrong? No. No answer was wrong. Actually, every answer was true for them because it was something called subjective truth. It really told me more about the subject, my daughters or my son, than it told me about the topic. It told me what they preferred, what their opinion was, who they were as a person. And I loved it. I got to know them deeper. There's another kind of truth that's called objective truth. And it is truth that is true regardless of the subject. Regardless of your opinion or your preference, there are some things that are true. The main statement tonight is it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. Abortion intentionally kills an innocent human being. Therefore, abortion is wrong. The objective truth is what we're going to talk about tonight. We need to understand how to answer the questions our culture asks, continually pointing out to the objective truth. There's a lie that the abortion industry has promoted in our country, and they've been very successful. They've made the question of abortion to be based on preference. I've heard Christians on social media, I've seen a lot of it, where Christians will say, well, I wouldn't personally have an abortion, but I can't tell you not to have an abortion. They've made the issue of abortion subjective truth. Let me ask you this. Would you find this offensive? You don't believe in spousal abuse? Well, good. Don't beat your wife. How about this one? Don't believe in slavery? Fine. Don't own a slave. It's offensive, isn't it? Don't want an abortion? Fine. Don't have one. It's a lie in the industry that we can be one way or the other. Tonight, in order to go through this, to help us understand, and this is what I want you all to understand, tonight is about equipping you. But see, because what God is wanting are the believers of Jesus to rise up with courage. He wants us to quit being in this mushy middle bystander on a genocide that is taking place. And so tonight I'm going to seek to answer 5 questions. What is the unborn? What is abortion? What gives humans value? Since we are Christians in this room, what does God say about it? And 5, what can you do to love your unborn neighbor? Now, you'll notice as I go through this, the first 3 questions, I'm not going to use the Bible. And the reason for that is because it is objectively true, meaning that you can be from any religious persuasion and you can still defend the unborn because it's an objective truth. And these are the ways you need to have conversations out there. But because we're Christians, everything should have a theological basis. And so we will go there as well. So let's begin with the first question. What is the unborn? From the earliest stages of development, the unborn are distinct, living, whole human beings. From the one-cell stage, you were already there. This is what you used to look like. You were beautiful, weren't you? That is what you used to look like. You couldn't be seen. You were invisible to the naked eye, but you were there. Now, another lie that our culture will say is, well, we don't really know when human life begins. Have you ever heard that lie? I've heard Christians say this lie. Let me just tell you, that is a lie. And the reason I can tell you that lie is because in medical schools around the world, the textbooks will claim in the science of embryology that the human being begins when the sperm and the egg meet. That is what the science says. That's what abortionists will even agree to. Now let's quickly just go over a couple of quotes that you can see. Although life is a continuous process, fertilization is a critical landmark because under ordinary circumstances, a new genetically distinct human organism is thereby formed. This is in an embryology textbook. Medical students around the world will know that. If you'll go to the next. Dr. Guttmacher, he's for abortion, pro-abortion, and he became so frustrated that anyone would even question when human life began. He's for abortion, and he said, "This all seems so simple and evident that it is difficult to picture a time when it wasn't part of common knowledge." Peter Singer, he's an abortion advocate, university professor. He says there's no doubt that from the first moments of its existence, an embryo conceived from human sperm and egg is a human being. The world of academics, they know the truth. The world that you may be dealing with people who are just having these conversations, they'll say, we don't really know. Point them out to the embryologist doctors, the textbooks. We do know. Now, what does it mean to be distinct, living, and whole? First of all, you are distinct from the one cell stage. You are distinct from your mom and dad. What happened is this: the sperm and the egg, they met together, and the sperm and the egg, they died as they came together to create a new human being. They gave up their constituents to become something new. Your mom, you were not part of your mom, you were in your mom. When your mom housed you for a period of time, she did not have 4 legs and 4 arms and 4 eyes and 4 ears. She always only had 2 of each of those things. You, as a distinct human being, had the other set of all those things I just named. You also, a human being from the earliest stage of development, is living. Dead things don't grow. And the embryo, from its earliest stages, it grows. And what's amazing about the embryo is that if I were to build a house, I would have to buy all these different supplies, and I would get people that were gifted in doing certain things in a house to put it all together, but I would be directing it. But in the embryo, there's no outside force that's directing the maturation of that embryo. It's happening all from within. It is living. It is distinct, and it is also whole. What does it mean to be whole? It means it is a human based on what a human is. So if there's a dog that's growing in a dog, a puppy growing in a dog, in a mother dog, by nature of what it is a dog that's developing. A human being does not grow into a person. The embryo does not develop into a person or into a human being to where like, ta-ta, now I've decided to be a human. From at the very beginning, it is a whole human being directing its own maturation. Now, we can have false intuitions where we can look at an embryo and we can say, yeah, it just doesn't look like a human, so I'm not sure it is. Well, years ago, Chad and I were at a church and we were speaking, and we had all these supplies from speaking and doing things, and we had little kids. So Chad had his arms loaded down with supplies, and I had my arms loaded down with diaper bags and kids, and we were walking out. Well, Chad happened to have Jolie's doll, and it was one of those dolls that looks real, and he was holding that doll by a leg, and he was walking with all his stuff with this baby that was like getting knocked around everywhere, and there were some people that just about went crazy, and they came up and they were like, oh, you just made our hearts stop. We thought that doll was a real baby. They had a false intuition. They thought it was a baby, but it was not a human. It was a doll. In the same way, this may not look like a baby, but guess what? It looks exactly what it's supposed to look like as a human embryo. It looks like what it's supposed to look like. Now, this embryo, I want to introduce you to the embryo. Jolie. And Jolie that you see right there, she is just as much worthy to protect then as she is now. She is just as beautiful now as she was then. She was the same person. So the question, what is the unborn? From the very beginning, the unborn is a living, whole, distinct human being. So now we move to the second question. What is abortion? The medical community around the world, in order to do their jobs, they sign what is called the Hippocratic Oath. And this means first, do no harm. And this means that in whatever medical treatment you give, the goal is to bring healing to the patient, not to bring harm to the patient. So the surgery may hurt, but it's in order to bring healing. Today in the United States, over 2,500 groups of medical professionals will break their Hippocratic Code. In the world, 115,000 will violate the Hippocratic Code. And they'll say it's okay because it is legal. So what is abortion? Abortion is an act of violence that takes the life of an unborn child. An act of violence. It's not simply withdrawing support from that child. It's going after that child with the intention to harm until death. Now, I want to give you just a few quotes, not from people who think like I think, but from abortionists and what they say about abortion. We have reached a point in this particular technology. This is abortionist Warren Henn addressing Planned Parenthood, which is the largest killer of babies in our country. And he says, we've reached a point in this particular technology, D&E abortion, where there is no possibility of denying an act of destruction. It is before one's eyes. The sensations of dismemberment flow through the forceps like an electric current. The next slide. Just look at the title of this, Fresh Blood for the Vampire. Hence, I have always frankly admitted that abortion is murder, the extermination of the powerless by the powerful. And the next one, abortion deliberately kills a developing embryo, and it is a choice for death. You've always heard the categories pro-life, pro-choice. I'm for choice. I'm for the choice of either adopting your baby out or choosing to raise your child. I'm for choice that a woman can marry whom she wants to marry, that a woman can go to college where she wants to go to college. I'm for choice, but I'm not for this choice that leads to death, where it's the powerful choosing that the powerless must die. Frederick Douglass, you may have heard of him. He was a black abolitionist. And during his time, there were thoughts in the community that if you had well-seasoned, reasoned arguments, that was enough to end slavery. Frederick Douglass thought something very differently. He said, not when the public is yawning. He said, it takes more. It takes so much more to awaken the conscience. And so he began to say, we need to use photos. And so he began, and other abolitionists, they began to show photos of chattel slavery. And they would show the backs of these men and women that had raised scars from the beatings that they received because they were the powerless. And that became a catalytic drive to end slavery. Some people say, no, we shouldn't show pictures of abortion. It moves the argument to emotion, and we don't want to go there. I want to say, maybe it's not a question of emotion. Maybe it's the question of what is truth. And if the pictures and if the videos substantiate the argument, then maybe, just maybe, we as even the church need to see the visuals to awaken our conscience so we get out of the mushy middle and enter into this fight for life. I have a 55-second video that I do want to show you tonight. I've asked permission to show it, and the tally said yes. And in this 55-second video, you're going to see the significance of this topic. You're going to see what's happening to our unborn neighbors. Now, you do not have to watch this video. You can close your eyes, and that is perfectly fine if that's what you need to do. But if you can watch the video, I encourage you to. Now, if you choose to close your eyes, it's only 55 seconds. There will be no narration, so you will not hear even what we are seeing. I also want to address one quick thing. When you see these pictures, I want you to cling to the truth that this is why Jesus came. We are all fallen. We are all short of the glory of God. We all need the cross. We all need it. And if those have had abortions that we know are in this room, or we've encouraged an abortion, that is the power of the gospel that Jesus just says, admit it, confess it, repent from it, and I'll take it on my own body. That is the gospel. And that's why every talk I've ever had about this issue, it always leads to a story of the cross. And so as we watch this video, keep in your mind that this is one of the reasons Jesus came. On this issue of abortion, there is no neutral ground. The sleeping church must arise. The third question we want to go over is, who counts as one of us? Who counts? When we were in Thailand, one of the things my son loved to do is he loved to go into our kitchen and take ingredients and combine them and create his own recipes. He would never follow what someone else had done before him. He would take all kinds of things and mash them up and do things to them. And then he'd say, "Here, Mom, you want to try?" What do you think my first question was? What's in it? What is it? Exactly. This issue of abortion, we must ask the question, what is it? And so we've talked about what is the unborn. What is it? What is abortion? We've talked about that. But now we must quickly go into the question of what makes humans valuable. And this is an important distinction, an important question, because in the world of arguments, which is where Satan fights, is in arguments, right? And we must know how to contend with what is out there in our culture. There's two opposing viewpoints. They're rival viewpoints, the endowment viewpoint and the performance viewpoint. The endowment viewpoint is basically that your value is in virtue of the kind of thing you are. The value of the human is in virtue of the kind of thing they are. They're human. So it's not based on function. If we were to take a survey in this room, we would discover very big inequalities. Some of us are great with music. Some of us are great with math. Some of us are great with strength. Some of us are great, builders and medical people. We have varying degrees. We're unequal. We are unequal in our functions and the ways and the values and the things that we can do. However, we're equal in the fact that we're all of the same human nature. And so the endowment view is obviously we're not only made in the image of God, but because of that, we share an equality with one another. It's nothing that you earn. Now, in the performance view, it's different. Its value is grounded in your performance. And the performance view is important to understand because basically it says it's grounded, your value is grounded in what you can do. So this is where you've got to think with me for just a minute. A lot of these abortionists and these academic people, they will say, yes, you are a human being. So they flip the argument. And then what they say is, you're a potential person, but you're not an actual person yet. It moves to personhood. So they begin to create this subjective truths about what makes a person. And it's based on conscious thought. It's based on, can you feel pain? It's based on self-awareness. It's based on, do you have desires yet? And so they create this arbitrary list of what makes a person so that what makes it right and what makes it okay to have an abortion. Now, as you can imagine, this leads to savage inequality because it's based on what we can do. And if it's that you can't do it yet, or you lose it in later life, or because you've been in a car accident, your value's gone because your performance is not there anymore. These are non-essential differences. There's no morally significant difference between the embryo that you were and the person you are now that substantiates that we could kill you then, but not now. If that makes sense. Who you are now, you once were that embryo. The value you have now is basically you're still a distinct living human being, just as you were as an embryo. Now, there's a man named Stephen Schwartz, and he helps us to understand these non-essential differences, and I want to quickly go through these. And he uses an acronym SLED, and the S stands for size. The size that we are, does that create our value? Does it have anything to do with our value? If so, Chad is bigger than me, so he has more value. I'm bigger than all of my children, therefore I have more value than them. The 6-month-old little girl is bigger than the child in the womb, so therefore I can't kill her, but I can kill that one. L, level of development. It is true that 6-month-old baby girl is less developed than the 20-year-old woman. Is that a reason to kill the 6-month-old little girl? The 6-month-old has more development than the baby in the womb. Does that mean, therefore, we can kill the baby in the womb? Because the 6-month-old can do more than the baby in the womb? It's an arbitrary list. E, environment. How does where you are determine what you are? So when Phoebe was living in China for 15 months without me before I could get there to adopt her, did her value change once I adopted her and I flew her thousands of miles into another country? Or was she the same value in either place? If you say yes, then I'll ask the question, then how can an 8-inch journey down the birth canal change a person and change their value? It's arbitrary. Or imagine this. Did you know that they do surgery sometimes on babies in the womb? And so what they do, you've seen the picture probably of the baby is brought out and the baby clasps the surgeon's finger. You seen that picture? Okay, tell me this. So I take the baby out, now I cannot legally kill the baby. I do surgery, put the baby in, now I can legally kill the baby. The baby's born, now I can no longer legally kill the baby. How does environment determine what has value or who has value? And D, dependence, the degree of dependence. It is true that you depended on your mom when you were born. It's true that you depended on your mom when you were in her womb. But when does dependence on another human being say that you could have been killed because you're dependent on anyone else? As you can see from SLED, these are non-essential differences, our size, our environment, our level of development, our degree of dependence. What is the unborn? What is abortion? What gives us value? From these arguments, I hope that we see that abortion is objectively wrong because it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. Abortion intentionally kills an innocent human being. Therefore, abortion is wrong. To objective truth, and it should because Jesus is called truth. It always should. So what does the Bible say? I've heard Christians say that the Bible doesn't say anything about abortion, so it's not a big deal. And when I said, no, it is a big deal, I was called swamp gas by a Christian called swamp gas. I don't know what that really even means. But anyway, I was called swamp gas. A lot of my friends were like, oh my goodness. And then my brothers in Christ were like, that's awesome. You're called swamp gas. So anyway, but the whole thing is, what does God say? Well, let me tell you, from Genesis to Revelation, the book is about a God who loves life. He's called the author of life. He's called the creator of life. He's called the living water. He's called the bread of life. He's the one that valued you and life so much that he said, I will die so that I can bring those who are dead spiritually back alive again. Jesus Christ loves life. Not only that, but he's the giver of abundant life. And not only that, he says, I'm going to provide a way through my resurrection so that I might give my children eternal life. From Genesis to Revelation, this is the God we worship. He is a God of life. His platform is life. The second thing you can know just quickly in your Bible is that the Israelites were told to completely destroy the Canaanite nations. Is it because God didn't like the Canaanites? No, his patience had run out. It wasn't just the sexual immorality of the Canaanites that God was so offended by. It was the disgusting, grotesque practices. And let me quickly tell you one of the things they did. One of the things they did is they had a god named Baal. They had a god named Molech. And these gods were built into statues, and they held their hands out like this. And a fire was lit underneath them. And little babies were put in the hands of these gods for child sacrifice. And God had had enough. And when the Israelites began to do the same thing, he was like, no. After the flood, God says there will be an accounting for every innocent life lost. God's keeping an account. He's going to give it, he's going to make sure every life taken is given an accounting. God's against the intentional killing of innocent human life. But I knew that you would like this one, John the Baptist. When Mary comes to see Elizabeth, and little Johnny's in the womb, and he hears Mary speak. And what does little Johnny do? He leaps in her womb from the inside. And in the Greek, this baby's not called a fetus, which means little one in Latin, just so you know. He's called, Elizabeth says, the brephos, the child in my womb has leapt. These babies are created with souls. They're created in the image of our God. I hope at this point you are at the edge of your seat saying, okay, so what can I do? What can I do about this issue? How can I love my unborn neighbor? And I want to tell you just 3 quick things that you can do. 1, be equipped. Learn how to answer the world's arguments. Learn how to use logic. Learn how to bring responses not to win the debate. Learn to answer with everything you have, seasoned with salt and love and grace, so that lives will be changed. Not just the baby's lives, but the mother's lives as well. On a sheet of paper Chad will give you at the end, we have a sheet that'll show you a resource on our website about how to love both the mother and the unborn. You can go in, learn more about SLED and different things like that. Secondly, pray. Did you know that the Supreme Court just heard a case in December that could overturn Roe v. Wade? It will not stop abortion. It just means the power goes back to the states and more babies. Did you know? Okay, well, let me ask you this. How many of you, don't even raise your hand, how many of you have prayed about that case? How many have lifted up the names of the justices who are about to make a decision? And for those of you who hear people say men shouldn't say anything about abortion or pregnancy because they can't get pregnant, who decided Roe v. Wade in the first place? They were all men on the Supreme Court that allowed abortion to become legal. And just so you know, the United States is one of the top 7 nations for the worst restrictions on abortion. We're right in there with China and North Korea. Pray. This decision will be made in June. Pray, pray, pray. You can join a weekly prayer call of Christians around America praying for those Supreme Court justices on Monday. The information's on the sheet. And last, you can serve. Contact the Pregnancy Crisis Pregnancy Center. See what you can do as an individual, family, a church. Find ways to serve. In our organization, we're doing this on a global scale, doing seminars all the time to try to help people to understand the value of life. And in ours, it always turns to people coming to Jesus Christ themselves. I also want to encourage you to go to the Wall of Remembrance. Did you know we have one in Chattanooga? It's on Vance Road. Every plaque you see there is a mom, a grandmother, or a dad who's recognized the mistake and the sin of having an abortion. And they've had engraved a plaque to say sorry, or I'll see you soon, or mom didn't know, I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. Go some weekend and read those plaques. Read the letters that go along with the baseball glove of a dad who says, I didn't stand up for you. Did you know there's also a wall of remembrance, not for the Jews that were killed in the Holocaust, but there's a wall of remembrance in Jerusalem. Do you know whose names are on that? It's those who defended the personhood of Jewish people. Slavery, the Jewish Holocaust, and abortion, it always goes to the personhood arguments. And in the Wall of Jerusalem, the Wall of Remembrance in Jerusalem, you know whose name is there? Corrie ten Booms, my hero. There, not because she simply went, too bad for those Jews. Oh, that's sad. It's because she said, I won't stand in the mushy middle. I'll get over here and I'll give everything to hide the Jewish people. And she risked everything. Most of her family died in the concentration camps. But sometimes I wonder, does God make walls like that? Does he have a wall of remembrance of those who were standing on the largest genocide to ever hit humanity? Does he have a wall where he's writing down those names of the people who were fighting in honor of the Creator for his created beings? The 14-year-old I told you about, the young girl whose dad almost killed her, she's sitting on the bed right there. 14 years old, when she was 7, she became an orphan, went into an orphanage. Pregnant, our first person to ever stay in our maternity home, 14 years old. And she said, Auntie Leslie, I'm scared. She said, but I know that God once defended me when I was a newborn, and it's now my time to take care of and protect a newborn, and he will give me strength. As we were sitting on the bed, she was asking me all about labor, 14 years old. And then we turned in our conversation about, did she have any ideas if she wanted to adopt the baby or if she wanted to take care of it? And I said, if you want to take care of the baby, we'll help you. But if you want to adopt the baby, I want you to know what a hero that is, to be a mom who allows her baby to be adopted. I said, I honor Phoebe's mom in China. She chose to allow the baby to be adopted. There that little girl is. Little girl baby, adopted by a Nepali Christian couple who were infertile, desperate for a child. And this mom sacrificed to allow her child to go into that home. Do you know what it took for that little baby to not be part of the 115,000 that will be killed today? It took a heroic mom, and it took a heroic group around that mom who sought to help and to love that unborn neighbor. Everything we do with Jesus, he watches, and he's glorified by it. May this church, may you as individuals, may you continue to love our unborn neighbors, and in that glorify the Creator, Jesus,